So let's talk about synthesis and combustion reactions. When it comes to a synthesis reaction, what that means is that we are going to have two substances or more combine into one. So the first example that I have here is two individual elements. We have hydrogen and oxygen combining in order to combine and make one product of water. So that's one example of a synthesis reaction. Another example could be two compounds, or it could be a compound and an element that comes together to form a one single product. The key is that we've got more than one material coming together to form just one material. And so here's another example of a synthesis reaction for you. So make sure that you have the example of potassium chloride reacting with oxygen to produce potassium chlorate. So here's another practice example for you. We have two solids and we are going to react them to produce aluminum sulfide. So aluminum is written Al, and then our and tells us plus, and then our sulfur is going to be just S. None of those are diatomic molecules. We need to then put in our arrow and we need to write correctly aluminum sulfide. The key is that you have to write the formula correctly. So remember that aluminum gets a +3 charge and sulfur gets a -2 charge. So we have to write those where we balance the charges to 0. So you have to write Al2S3 as the correct formula for that compound. So here you have another example. We have water and dinitrogen pentaoxide react to produce nitrous acid. So again, you have to write the formulas correctly in order to show that this is a synthesis reaction. So our formula for water is going to be H2O. Then we need dinitrogen. So that's going to be N2. Pentaoxide, that's going to be O5. So our formula for dinitrogen pentaoxide is going to be N2O5, and then that's going to produce nitrous acid. Now there's no hydro on the beginning of that name, so it must be an acid with a polyatomic ion. So since it ends in nitrous, OUS, it must be nitrate, NO3. So we're gonna have to put hydrogen with NO3. Now hydrogen gets a +1 charge and NO3 gets a -1 charge. So the formula for nitrous acid is going to be HNO3. Now let's talk about combustion reactions. How do you know something is a combustion reaction? If one of the reactants is oxygen, then it is a combustion reaction. So combustion reactions are something reacting with oxygen. Now here's the interesting thing. A combustion reaction can also be a synthesis reaction. So I'm going to show you two different types of combustion reactions. I'm going to show you a hydrocarbon with oxygen reacting for a combustion reaction, and I'm going to show you something that is not a hydrocarbon. So let's start with explaining what a hydrocarbon is. So a hydrocarbon is any compound that has hydrogen and carbon in it. So the hydrocarbon is going to be right here. Remember that these are our reactants. And so how do we know this is a combustion reaction? Well, that's because we've got the oxygen here. So how do we know that it is a hydrocarbon? We're looking for a compound that has hydrogen and carbon in it. Now, here's the interesting thing about a combustion reaction that is going to be involving a hydrocarbon. The products, which are here, are always the same. The products are always going to be CO2 and H2O, carbon dioxide and water. So it doesn't matter what the hydrocarbon is. Let's say we had methane, which is CH4 reacting with oxygen. It's a combustion reaction. The hydrocarbon is going to be this right here. That's methane, our hydrocarbon. Its combustion because here's my oxygen reacting with it. And guess what? The products are going to be CO2 plus H2O, carbon dioxide and water. What about sugar when you do cellular respiration? Sugar is C6H12O6. When you do cellular respiration, it reacts with oxygen. So guess what? It's a combustion reaction happening right inside of your body. And the products are CO2, which you breathe out, and H2O. You keep some of it, but then your body gets rid of the other amount of it when you go to the bathroom. The other type of combustion reaction is going to include synthesis. It's still combustion because it is a chemical reacting with oxygen. So that again is still how we know it's a combustion reaction. But now in this example, we see a single element. And when we have a single element that is not a hydrocarbon and it's going through combustion, it's reacting with oxygen, it ends up being a synthesis reaction as well as a combustion reaction. So now our products, as you can see in the example, is not carbon dioxide and water. Instead, we have our single element combining in a synthesis reaction and making one single product with the oxygen. Okay, so the next two slides have two examples for you. Gases nitrogen dioxide and oxygen react to produce dinitrogen pentaoxide. And then the other one is a hydrocarbon. Try those two and then check. So our last one, we've got nitrogen dioxide and oxygen react. So we have to write those formulas correctly. Nitrogen dioxide and oxygen react, and then we get the two produce. So that tells us that we need an arrow. Now, you'll notice we only have one product. So that tells us that not only is this a combustion because of the oxygen, but because we've only got one product, this is also a synthesis reaction. And so our product, it tells us that we've got dinitrogen, so N2, pentaoxide, O5. So there is our chemical reaction for the first example. Then our second example is going to be with a hydrocarbon. So ethanol is going to be the hydrocarbon. And we're going to have a combustion reaction. So that means, how do we start this? We're going to start with C2H6O, and we're going to add oxygen to it. And when we add oxygen to it, whenever we have a hydrocarbon, so make yourself a note, this is a hydrocarbon. Anytime we have a hydrocarbon and combustion, our products are always going to be CO2 and H2O. So there is our reaction for ethanol going through combustion because it's a hydrocarbon. Okay, so to finish up, you are going to do the synthesis practice problems in Schoology. Work with your shoulder partner as well as people at your table to work on just these synthesis problems. So there are no combustion reactions unless it's a synthesis and combustion reaction on this paper. And then after that, you're going to be working on your homework document. If you finish, the answer key for the synthesis problems will be posted, but your homework, you should be able to do all of them at this point, even though we haven't practiced combustion yet, but you can try to work on all of them, and the homework is due on Friday. I will see you all tomorrow.